The message received from Andrew Gorf had said, "The director of yesterday's channel's Forbidden History has asked me to reach out and ask if you would appear in a documentary about vampires. They need someone who believes in the Highgate vampire. I've worked with him quite a bit and can vouch for him being a great guy. Interested?" David, a reference to David Ferrand, will not be interviewed.
In the 1970s, stories began to emerge of a vampire roaming around at night here in Highgate Cemetery. Amid stories of strange goings on and people being attacked and blood sacrifices, the press had a field day. But what was really going on?
Highgate vampire stories are really the ultimate British B-movie. You have, mob exorcism going on. You have someone running around claiming that he's chasing vampires. You have British bobbies running all over the place, hunting for vampires and ghosts in the night. Really, it's kind of a crazy mob scene, isn't it?
A group of ghost hunters in the 1960s, early 70s were ghost hunting in Highgate Cemetery. It was pretty derelict by this time, and one of them spent the night there and believes that he saw a ghost, a figure dressed in a cape wandering through Highgate Cemetery.
It all starts in sort of the 1960s when the Satanists are doing rituals in the tombs in the cemetery in Highgate. And what they find is that on the walls of the tombs are images of an entity they're trying to manifest. And people who have analyzed this have been led to believe that if manifested, this entity would stay.
On Halloween, whether it's the same group or another group, actually broke into the cemetery, dug up a recent grave, spread flowers in circles in the graveyard, and hammered a metal stake through the coffin lid and through the heart of the person in the grave. Why they did it, where it came from, I don't know, but it's now become a famous legend.
Large numbers of amateur vampire hunters flocked to the cemetery, and one of them even got himself arrested. His name is David Ferrand, and I've come to Highgate to meet him. What was it that you saw in Highgate Cemetery that night?
Well, I can't tell you, except it was a very tall figure, almost as tall as the gate. That is the top gate of Highgate Cemetery. Now, I didn't know if it was floating above the ground, because the bottom of the figure seemed to disappear into blackness. I could only really see where it was higher, and it was highlighted against the sky. And also the area around myself had turned icy cold. Bear in mind it was a bitterly cold night anyway, in December. And I got the impression that it seemed to be trying to communicate with me.
What was it trying to say to you?
It's not so much trying to say something, it was draining me of energy. It's almost like I felt I was being hypnotised, sort of falling into a dream I had no control over.
Most people see what they want to see. So if you'd gone along to Highgate Cemetery in search of a paranormal figure floating around in there, you may have seen a tramp walk across the graveyard and gone, oh, I saw it. It was there, I absolutely saw it, and then it disappeared. And then you see something like a dead animal, and you think, oh, well, that must have been what the vampire ate. Then the newspaper gets hold of it. The newspaper says a figure was seen eating a fox, draining it of its blood, coming out of a tomb, when in reality nothing like that was ever said. But people read the newspaper, the next generation of vampire hunters comes along, expecting to see that, and they see what they expect to see again. And so the story sort of self-perpetuates. There was quite a press furore at the time. I've seen the clippings, and I've seen pictures of you being arrested at that time. Why were you arrested?
We were holding a vigil and we cast a circle by the grave of a 17th century pirate. And the police turned up. Admittedly, we had a few symbols on the ground, magical symbols. We were trying to communicate with that. And ironically, the police turned up just as the church clock was striking midnight. All of a sudden, these figures came charging out of the undergrowth. And I was arrested and charged with indecency in a churchyard.
David Ferrand, sort of head of the British Occult Society, had a really important role in the whole Highgate vampire story. He's the one who's going into the tombs and uncovering the fact that there were satanic rituals going on there. He's the one who identifies this entity that's trying to be manifested, and he's the one who kind of goes on this journey to find the vampire.
When this story broke, it caused quite a reaction, didn't it, in London?
Yes, especially in Highgate. When you start mentioning words like black magic, Satanists, vampires, people get very, very hostile. Which is why I never described it as a vampire, I described it as a ghost. And that's the sort of thing I was looking into, and also quite a few of the other local pubs around Highgate, where this black tall figure has also been sighted to see if there was any connection between the two figures.
If it isn't a vampire up at Highgate Cemetery, what is it?
Well, as I said, I think it's an unexplained entity, a ghost, something that may have remained earthbound, which has been seen. Let's remember this, it's been seen by many, many local people, not just myself. I only saw what two other people had already witnessed.
Curiously, to this day, there's reports in Swain Lane, which is the road that goes right by Highgate Cemetery, of civilians reporting to the police seeing a tall man with dark, piercing red eyes walking across the street and through the wall. Now, they know nothing about the Highgate Cemetery vampire. It's sort of a cult subject. Not everyone knows about it, but this gets reported to the police every 2 or 3 years. So it's quite curious that there continues to be that sort of spotting of an entity that people associate with the vampire.
And is what you saw still there?
Yes. It's there, it's been sighted very, very recently. Not only the actual figure itself, but people have had experiences there by the top gate. There's some sort of energy there which affects mobile phones and affects cameras. Often people have tried to take a picture after having a tour of the cemetery, and the battery's fully charged, it just goes dead. There are loads more people we have on record, and we can't possibly say they were all imagining more or less the same thing. It's been witnessed by many other people.
So let's be real. I mean, the account of the Highgate vampire, fantastic, entertaining, enthralling, romantic, sexy, all of that. But is it real? I really doubt it.
From the reports of vampires roaming through Highgate Cemetery to burials in Bulgaria and real-life bloodsuckers in Slough, this culture is well and truly alive. And thanks to TV shows like True Blood, it's gained a whole new generation of fans. But are any of the stories of vampires true, or is it all just a gothic fantasy? And at the end of the day, there's one question that stands out above all others. Just how good is it for you to actually drink someone else's blood?
I can categorically tell you that there is absolutely no benefit whatsoever from drinking blood, either from a chalice or from biting someone in the neck. It goes in one end and out the other. End of story.
We're told there's an energy rush in drinking blood. You know, it's a highly taboo thing to do. But in reality, the dangers, i.e. the diseases, far outweigh any potential health benefits.
The irony is that after centuries of the menace of vampires, something hideous coming at you, stinking of the grave, and you running away because it's pure nightmare, now you have all millions of young girls thinking, vampires, wonderful, bite me, bite me.
To be honest, I think that today people are playing at being vampires. I think they're taking something from myth, they're taking something that's been really current in popular film, and trying to live it out.
So, are vampires real? Or is the whole legend born out of ignorance and superstition, fueled by the likes of Bram Stoker and Count Dracula? Certainly those people that drove the stakes through the torsos of those bodies in Bulgaria thought they were real. But it seems to me that nowadays most people who believe themselves to be vampires are simply playing out some kind of gothic fantasy. More Count Duckula than Dracula. I'll see you next time.